Que la famille. Que la famille.
Thanks a lot for the intro, Erika. Awesome. So thanks a lot for being here. So yeah, Erika did a great job introducing Sleight and myself. So we are building the first note-taking app for teams. If you have not signed up yet, you can just go on Sleight.com and create an account for your team. I'm actually using Sleight that I used at the family for Pitch Don't Kill My Vibe like a year ago or something like that. So, but it's still accurate. So basically, the problem that we are trying to fix is the fact that when you are an individual and that you are learning things, maybe today, maybe in a meeting, well, everybody has a simple way to handle knowledge. They use note-taking app, whether offline, with your notebook, or with your online, Apple Notes, Evernote, and etc. note-taking app. The way we see it, this is super simple. This is a mess for teams, because all the content and knowledge is spread across a ton of different tools. And the permission is a mess, you never know who can access which documents, you always lose. And basically, you end up repeating yourself constantly. So this is why we built Sleight, which is a note-taking app, so as simple as what you use every day as an individual, but built for teams. So this is, just to give you insights, this is actually an old version of Sleight, but it can give you an insight on what is exactly Sleight. We basically used the simplicity of the channel pattern of Slack, so super simple permission sets. You have one channel, you know exactly who can access which document, and it's also a great way to discover a new document. When you have a new document that you write, like a meeting note internally with a team, nobody will read that unless you send them a link. Well, in Sleight, you can be, alerted that there is a new document, for instance, in design, in dev, and so on. So yeah, I'll let basically you check out on your own Sleight later on. So Erika told you most of this, but basically this is the story of Sleight, like the big milestones. I launched the first, I wrote the first lines of code in August, September of 2016. I launched the company with eFounders, which you might know. We actually developed really, really fast a first product that was used internally. So we launched actually a super private beta, let's say, in January of 2017. It was a mess. It was not functional. It was, buggy. You lost content and so on. So we refined it until the point where we were, confident that people would not lose content, and we launched a private beta in May 2017. So this is a bit less than a year after. And the amazing thing is that in the following 4 months, we really went to all the doors of startup in Paris and made them go into Sleight. And we actually made huge teams up to 150 people, churned from tools like Confluence and Google Docs exclusively to Sleight. So this was basically, in a tool that you build in less than a year, it was a huge success, at least for us. And we were so amazed by that we refined the product and felt that we were ready to launch publicly, which we did in October, end of October of last year. On Product Hunt, we had something like more than 2,000 upvotes. Great success as well. It's perfect to launch your company because it brings you a lot of early adopters that are super critical about your product. It was perfect to evolve. And I was actually in San Francisco at this time, and we, were in the last round of interview for YC. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically a few rounds of selection, and at the end it's 10 minutes, super intense, with the smartest guys in the world, challenging you on a lot of different points. And well, we were accepted, which was amazing and basically totally in line with the ambition that we have. The goal of Sleight is really to become a standard. We want you as a team to launch a team in 2 years and not even think about that. You will have Slack, Google Suite, and Sleight. It just will be immediate. And YC is perfect for that. You need an international image. You need something to make you go even faster. And it was really amazing to be surrounded by, honestly, the most interesting and inspiring mentors I have ever seen in my life. And well, actually it was a bit later than that, but like earlier this year we raised a huge seed round with Index, which is probably the best fund in Europe, and that is also a US fund. It was, like basically we have in our luggage, we have like probably the best mentors. Like eFounders is amazing, super pre-seed. In seed Y Combinator, it's just the best. And obviously Index is great rather for Serie A. We are really in the seed stage, but they are bringing, a lot of value really because of that. So yeah, and we skip a lot of points here because we don't have enough space, but basically we did our demo day. It was like really an amazing experience, like the 3 months of Y Combinator were amazing. We just grew so fast. And we just hired a few people. Like it stays the core team. We are now a team of 12. And yeah, we just launched the paying version, and we have like a lot of things in our roadmap. And to give you a bit of idea, we today have more than 4,000 active users across 450 teams. It's a great success. It's something that will go even faster in the upcoming years. The thing that we are the most proud of is that these users are super sticky. When you are on Sleight, it's a tool that is, don't take my word for it, don't try it. But like it's super, super useful, and at some point you will just, like if you're active in a week, you will come back 2 to 3 times a week. And if you're active in a day, you just are constantly on it every day. And this is the thing that we observe in our users. So yeah, we are now a team of 12. We are based in Paris mainly. We are actually super remote oriented. I will talk about that earlier because it's actually one of the things that we try to solve with Sleight. And the 2 pillars will actually launch a product meetup in a few weeks. Product is one of the things the most important for us. I think product teams in Europe are amazing. You can take a Wunderlist or a Sunrise that is really French actually, that are like just the best at building products. And that's, you were speaking about the state of funding in Europe today, that we are taking, we are having the right weapons today to build category leaders. So product is really important for us, and customer success, having customers that actually love the product is, it's super linked, but it's really, really important for us. When we designed Sleight, we really took a simple take. We said, Slack nailed communication because they use something that you use every day, which is the chat, like the same experience as WhatsApp, Messenger, and all the chat app that you use, and they brought that to team. And it solved dramatically the way communication works in teams. We are doing exactly the same by bringing the note-taking app to teams to solve the way they share knowledge. And this is really built, this is a simple idea, but it's built on top of really, really important pillars. The first one is asynchronous. This is actually a problem of Slack. And you hear lots nowadays about that. Slack is disturbing you every day. I don't know how many of you are in team really active on Slack, but probably 90% of this audience. And it's a pain, right, really. And you have to control yourself, and you have to, create habits, like to cut off Slack for half a day or stuff like that. So it's really about the synchronous versus asynchronous. Slack is all about synchronous. You just ping someone, they get notified, and they have to be there right now, active and available for you. It can be right for some emergency situation. It's not right for your everyday work. So we built Sleight to share information asynchronously. So if you are, actually it really comes with remote. Like if you are on the other side of the world, you can find the information, you can be aware of that, you can collaborate with the author on this information without being in constant communication. The second one is transparency. I think that more and more all the tech and startup environment is taking that value for granted. But it's really important to push that. When you have a document in Google Drive, it's not transparent. Not everybody can access that. Not everybody will read it. Content put in Sleight can be read and is acknowledged at least by everybody. So this is really something that you can change in your organization by having Sleight. And the last thing is remote. When you have a remote team, you can't rely on meetings. Typically, we have actually someone in Korea and someone in Sao Paulo. They have exactly 12 hours of delay. So basically, they have no time together. Like, one is 9 a.m., the other is 9 p.m. So it doesn't work. So the idea of that is the pain that it brings is basically that nobody can be in sync if they have to be at the same moment on Slack or on Zoom or whatever. But, and it's really something that is pushed, like, all these values are actually like super linked. But it's really something that is pushed more and more by a lot of companies. You have Buffer, you have InVision, you have Zapier, that really push for remote-only work. And I think they need the right tool. And today, they always tweak some kind of tools. They take open source projects, they put them on their server, and they tweak them for their use case. We are bringing the tool to solve all the remote companies' pains. And yeah, thanks a lot for being here. And I'm happy to have your questions, Erica, and then all your questions, if you have.
All right. So just to kickstart a little bit the Q&A, and then after we'll have Jordan do his demo, and then open the floor to you guys for questions. But so you were talking about, we talked about this fundraising that you did. That was 4.4 million. And usually what happens when a startup raises that amount, or at least a significant amount, is that they start hiring very aggressively. And we usually even tell people who are looking for a job in a startup, like, look at the fundraising announcements, that's how you can find a job. But you guys, I read that your strategy is not to grow super fast, but actually do something else. Can you tell me about that?
No, that's a super good question. We are not people intensive, basically. We don't need a lot of people. We need the best, but we are super product oriented, and we don't need an army of sales. And it's always a thing, like when you have a complex product, adding, when you are at your 10th developer, adding one is basically adding the half of it, like of its horsepower, We actually want to take time. We want to build something that for the next generation, something that is super long lasting. We need time for that. And this is why we raised this round. Like, basically, we are building for the long term. We need time to make a really, really good product. We still have problems on Sleight today, obviously, and we have a lot of things to fix. So yeah, we need the right amount of time. Like, we are not in a, usually the classic is like in Series A, you will be like building for growth. In Series B, you are exploding and basically, hiring your VPs and so on. Mm-hmm. We are really in seed stage.
Yeah.
And the only thing is we are giving ourselves the chance, 2 years, 2 years and a half to really build an amazing product.
And your investors are totally aligned with that?
Yeah, they are more than aligned, yeah.
That's cool.
Basically you have to, if you can parallel some things, you do it. Right now we are too small. Like, if we were growing, like if I was hiring like 10 people more, we would explode, I think.
Yeah. Also, I read, because I obviously stalked you to have some questions, but I also read that, so you decided to create Sleight. The way you came across this problem was that both you and Thibaut are avid note takers, so you take notes. And I think, personally, I think that there's two kinds of people in the world: the people who love to take notes and make lists, and people who don't. So, can you tell me a little bit more about why this problem is so passionating for you?
Yes, it's a good question. Like, I think the thing that make me super passionate about that is really the product aspect of it. Basically, building by something simple, a tool that will solve the problem of millions of people, is absolutely.
TaskRabbit.
Huh?
TaskRabbit, you said?
No. I'm sorry about that. I'm saying like building with a simple tool, like basically having one factor. It's one too many. Basically, you build one tool that solves the problem of millions of people, because it's simple and because you need simplicity. Like, not everybody needs a tailored solution, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing that makes me passionate about Sleight. And the note taking is really the origin. Like, I think it's one of the best tools. Like, you have like, if I had to tell you the list of all the note taking B2C or B2B tools that exist, you have like maybe 100 like right now. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of amazing ideas. It's a really, really good start. I simply think that nothing works for teams, and that you have like so many that comes out every day. Like, the best one is by far in B2C, at least, Bear. If you have an iPhone, it's really a really good note-taking app. And I think it's, it basically, at some point, you will not write, right? Like you don't need that. Like it's just an interface. But having the idea of a note is just the simplest format you can have. Like it's not a Word, it's not a Google Doc. You can't format, you can't add colors, change the font size and so on. It's really a simple format. And the thing that is great as an individual is that you don't need format because you are reading your content, so you don't need to emphasize something for everybody else or whatever. The thing that is awesome for Teams is that it structures the information exactly the same way. So, we'll develop the product in this way, but brings this awesomeness of simplicity, and it's also simplicity of sharing an information like made super simple between one person and another person of the same team.
That's something interesting that reminds me of. So one of maybe a big difference between Slack and Sleight is that so Slack is solving a problem that already exists. It's turning a use case, which is people sending messages and sending information to one another, into an easier way or a more synchronous way to do it. But in your case, it's...
I see what you mean. Like, it's replacing a tool that you already have, right? And I kind of agree. I think we are replacing endless meetings.
Okay.
And we are replacing the moment where, at the end of a meeting, someone will ping everybody that was in the meeting with a resume of what had been said.
And how does that remove meetings?
Well, no. I'm saying that this was what was happening before. Like you had like endless meetings, and at the end maybe someone would ping like the entire company with like a summary of what had been said. We are basically saying like you don't need a meeting to take a decision. Like you can take them asynchronously. And I think it's too bad. Like we were supposed to have Hugo from Pumpkin. So Pumpkin, that is the payments app. They use Sleight in a super interesting way. They basically remove meetings and take their decision asynchronously. So you write a note, you ping the people that should collaborate on it, and basically by back and forth like that, but on your time, they take new decisions. And I think this is this is the future. So I don't think we are replacing a tool that really existed before. We replace partly Google Doc, partly your wiki or your Confluence. But we are really trying to fix the problem of having knowledge shared in a company today required a one-one, like require a new meeting.
And do you feel like you have to educate your customers in that regard?
That's interesting. I think so, but I think we are not, like we are the most heavy users of Sleight. I don't think we are the best one. So I think our users already educated a lot. I think we are pushing use case, like we are pushing best practices, but I think it's in two ways. Like we are gathering all the best practices of teams around, and we are pushing them to the other teams.
Okay, and also that you were talking about remote working earlier, and that reminded me of a phrase I read somewhere that, so we talk a lot about remote working and what it means, and what's funny is that we are already working remotely. We're just going to the same office to do it, because we're all on Slack. We're all talking to each other via the communication tools that we use. So we are already working remotely, and I thought that was super interesting. But the question I wanted to ask you is that you wrote a blog post, or someone from your team did, that talked about how being remote, because we usually think of remote of something that benefits the employee because they have more freedom, they're more flexible, they can be more productive and be happier, but there are also advantages for the employer. And can you tell me more about generally why you're so bullish on remote?
Because if I was an employee, I wish I was in a remote. Like this is, I think, the core one. Like basically, if you want to build a team to have like people happy in your team, and to have them fulfilled, well, you have to basically put yourself in their shoes and say like, would I be happy in this setup, right? So I think remote is amazing, but like just sad. Like it just gives you whatever setup of life you want to be in, right? And I think like it's easy today to be in remote. Like it's actually easier, and it will be like easier and easier in the years to come. It's just a bummer not to give your employees this freedom. And the huge bonus for the employer is the hiring, like the sourcing. Like we need the best talent, and I mean like you had a tweet storm yesterday of Andrew Chen that you might know, that is an expert in growth. You can check in Twitter, Andrew Chen. Like he had a tweet storm yesterday that was incredibly interesting about the price of housing and life in San Francisco. San Francisco is like for I mean, I'm not learning anything to all of you that weren't there, but like it's amazing to launch a company. And like not only in tech, like really like any company, like you just are surrounded by the best experts in the planet. It's really impressive. And at the same time, it's an awful city because people that have, 6 numbers salaries are are not living well. Like it's just like it's I don't know, like it's dementia. And so anyway, he was like writing this thing where he was basically saying like we are reaching this moment where you can't launch a company all at once in San Francisco. You have to start, maybe have some founders there, or maybe do back and forth at some point, have like some strategic people there, but like you need to be abroad, right? And remote is the best solution to that. Like you can just have this if you do it right? Like if you can have people in remote, like it can gives you the same weapons as the Silicon Valley startups with much less money. And you have like many other advantages. Basically, the people that don't speak enough, they actually can learn to write, which is much easier. Mm-hmm. You can have like asynchronous debate when they work, and I think you probably had Jean-Charles from Alan here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Already. Like they are amazing on their, like I think it doesn't scale, but their method, like the way they do it is basically they have a GitHub. And every time that they have a subject, like an opportunity, a problem, someone challenging them, they create a GitHub issue. And everybody, I think you can assign on GitHub like people to review the issue. And everybody concerned is assigned. And they basically asynchronously share details, but you can't, just answer like in Slack, all right, no, you have to make a detailed approach on why you think it's the right decision or why it's not the right decision and so on. And at some point when you solve the decision, you basically close the issue. Well, I think these kind of decisions are way better, mm-hmm. and because they are well thought, and like they ask for everybody to have a well built opinion. And this is like one of the biggest advantage of asynchronous, and I think asynchronous is like just built in remote. So
yeah, I'm also thinking of like some people who are really loudmouths who will, you're valuing the people who are more outspoken and finally you're valuing their opinions more because they're more able to express themselves in a
absolutely. I mean, especially like I think I'm the you have like, I don't know if it translates well to English, but you have big muscles in
yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And like when you look, like I experienced that actually at eFounders, where we were 3 big mouses, like Thibaut, Quentin, the 2 founders of eFounders, and myself. And it was all right because 3 over a team, like, total of maybe 7 was a good number. Mm. But when you have like, 1 or 2 big mouses in a team of like 20, you're basically losing like 18 people, great advice and opinion and insight.
Yeah. And also, this is going to start looking like an ad for remote working, but also something that I discovered that I didn't think about was that having people work remotely is also reducing costs, because less people working at your office means less office space, so it's actually cheaper in that sense to have remote.
Honestly, I don't. It's a good point. The way Zapier does it, typically they have like people all around the world. And I think their rule is basically if we take someone in India, for instance, where obviously the salary of a developer is 10 times less than in, I would say like, I don't know, Boston or whatever, they will pay them 3 times, like a huge salary, but not too huge, so 3 times the best salary they could expect, mm-hmm. under a limit. And of course it will stay cheaper. So I agree on that. I think we are not there yet. Like it's not this benefit yet, but we have many others.
I wanted to talk about the other value that you have, which is transparency. So the main difference between, not the main, but like one of the big differences between Google Docs and Sleight is that, so in Google Docs, when you create content, it's by default private. So you actually have to choose the people you want to share it with. And on Sleight, everything is open to the whole team by default. And so I'm always drawing these parallels to Slack, but on Slack, for example, in our team, I think like 80% of the conversations are one-on-ones, privates, and then people sometimes, like they talk a lot on the public channels, but I don't know if it's a French thing, but people have a tendency to not want to risk, being open? I don't know. How do you perceive that? Has that any, did you see any cultural differences, or
Maybe we're too small.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Maybe we, Spendesk is a 30 people team, so maybe they can have another take on that. At 12, I don't feel this pain in Slack. Everybody really, really push ideas and so on, constantly. I can understand I can imagine the pain. And I think you don't really have it's a really good question. I don't have a good answer, honestly.
Okay, that means it was a really good question. Okay, so speaking of Spendesk, maybe it's time, Spendesk, I'm too hot, yeah. Let's do the demo. So Jordan, and then you can ask all your questions. Thank you, Christophe.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
So we're just going to talk about how we Spendesk use Sleight. It's a hard, but it did not happen. So why Sleight? First of all, because when you think about it, mankind came from prehistory to history with the invention of writing. And so we truly believe that if you write all the stuff that you get to know when you are building your startup, then it will help you to accelerate and build something that is just better. If you don't write, you're just reinventing over and over again the same thing. And so having a tool where we could actually build our knowledge and make it last through writing was one of the top, I'd say, goals for us. So why Sleight? So as I just said, it was important to build our knowledge and to make it last, to have it written somewhere. We didn't want to write too much on Slack because it's ephemeral, because it gets lost, because I said this to you in 1.1 and this other guy doesn't know about it. Because Sleight is totally aligned with our values, so I don't want to talk too much about what Christophe did, but we value transparency, as Christophe mentioned. Everything is open on Sleight, and we really believe that it helps the whole team to go in the same direction. So we share pretty much everything, the strategic objectives, the individual objectives, the results, etc. All of this is on Sleight. So I hope you have a good data privacy. It's also very flat, and we believe in flat organization. So you don't have too much folder that would represent the architectural, the hierarchy of your organization. It's very flat. So this is the two main values that we really wanted to implement into our knowledge system. And the third the third thing why we go with Sleight is that it's content first. So the formatting is pretty raw, but it's sufficient to make information, to highlight some part of information and to have a structural doc. But we didn't want to share best practice, etc., with PowerPoint, basically, because then you have a tendency to put too much intention on formatting, and we wanted really to focus on content and messaging. So how we use Sleight? So basically everyone at Spendesk has access to it. So it's one of the first tool that you get access to when you onboard in the company. We have organized folders by use case. So we wanted to focus on, as a reader, when we take the perspective of a reader, what do you want to read? What do you want to get? So you may want to get some roadmaps. You may want to get knowledge on how to do your job. This is written here, for example. Or you may want to know more about the Spendesk, the values, etc. So this is in the folder Life as Spendesk. And the kind of the subfolders, i.e. the collections in Sleight, we use teams just to separate within a use case knowledge per team. And at Spendesk, we have mainly the product, marketing, engineering, customer success, and sales teams, which is pretty classical for a startup of our size. So what do we put in Slite? Just a few things. Our OKRs. So we are using the Google framework objective key result to basically define quarterly goals and then define how we are going to reach them. I put some blanks here. It looks very empty, but there were some stuff. So OKRs is a really important note at Spendesk. We put playbooks, i.e. notes that explains to people how to do their job. So for example, here you have a note that says, as an engineer, when I make a demo to my team, how to do a good product demo with do's and don'ts, which was necessary because we encountered a bad demo one day and people were not happy. We also put our spec notes, so we can actually include some user flow, some diagrams, etc., which makes these notes quite rich and pretty long to scroll, but all the knowledge is here. We have to-do list. If we want to, let's say, tackle a big subject and we want to define timelines, we do them with to-do list in Sleight. And we have meeting reports and one-on-ones. So every time that we meet someone, for example, from the industry, we discuss with some guys during a money lunch. It's a practice that the sales do. Every time that we, for example, meet someone from a product guy from another team, we write a report just to build our knowledge. And then we are true believers on the one-on-one practice where people every 2 weeks they spend half an hour together to talk about their frustration, talk about their goals, etc. And we put all of this on Slide just to get an history of okay, did we improve some things? Okay, last time we said that we wanted to work on this stuff. Did this happen? If yes, if no, why not? And then we have a few challenges because the team is growing. The first challenge is to consolidate basically knowledge. So for example, I would meet with a product guy from I don't know, another company, and he would give me some insight about how to organize my team in squads. And in parallel, someone else, for example, an engineer, also talks about this best practice. And we have some challenges to basically merge the two contents of these two notes about squads, the concept of squads, to build kind of an expertise on how do squads or product organizations work across the industry. So basically we need to find a way to, when I add a piece of content, I need to add this to its concepts if we already have some concepts in the slide. We also have some challenge to kind of manage overlap with other tools. So in Sleight we have to-do list, but we also use Trello, we also use Slack, and sometimes content can go in one tool or one another. And so sometimes you say, okay, it's in Sleight, oh but no, it's in Trello, and there can be can get messy sometimes. And finally, because we are quite growing, we basically need to improve legibility with consistency. So when I access a note, I want to get the heart of its content as quickly as possible. So for example, when we have a meeting report with an expert from the industry, as a reader who did not attend the lunch, I really need to get the substance of this and not read all the notes. So we need to basically create, for example, templates that would kind of force note writer to extract the main content and to put it in and to highlight it. This is one of our last challenges. And to conclude, just a quick word about us. So we are Spendesk. We are the payment solution for SMBs. We have 800 customers across Europe, and we are a team of 30 people and growing to 60 by the end of the year. Thank you.
So now it's time for questions. Oh, yes, right there.
Hi. What have you learned from YC? And why did you make the decision not to stay in the US except the cost of life?
So we have learned really a lot. Like in 3 months, we basically changed the way of many things at Sleight. The three things that we keep in mind and that we like the core thing, like the thing that is the mantra of YC is build something users love, right? This is always true. Like this is, you can check any company when they are failing, they basically build something that people don't love. Or they build it the wrong way, but at least in seed and pre-seed stage, it's really the core issue. The second thing that I can't like it can seem really easy answers, but it's really true. Like they have the way because they are the really expert and can apply this concept to your company to really push you into the applying this concept. It's focus. The second is focus. Like basically you never focus enough on the thing that really matters. The example is basically we arrived at YC, and the thing that it told you is focus on one number. Like you have one number, you just make it grow, and you make everything align, like in all the team and whatever, like just to grow this number. And this changes dramatically the way you work. To us, like the core focus at the beginning of YC typically was that we had a big issue of teams, like actually owners of teams signing up and not inviting the rest of their teams. And it was a simple problem. Like you have solo users of Sleight, but they are not super active. It's not really what we are building. So we need people to just start by inviting a few users. It's basic, right? Across 2 months, in 2 months, we multiply by like 4 the amount of teams that went to 2 to 3 and etc. users, and it changes dramatically the way the situation we are today. So focus will be like the biggest one by far. And the last one, which is a bit personal, is the way to interact with mentors. Partners, like basically when you're in YC, you have office hours, so you can just book the time of the best people in the planet, and you have people that are dedicated to you. So for instance, we worked a lot with Jared Friedman, that was the founder of a company called Scripted, that is pretty well known. And basically we can take his time whenever we want. And it forces you, because you are with someone that is like super smart. They basically solve, like if you arrive with well thought questions, like really challenge that you have right now, well, it forces you to take 2 hours maybe to really structure this question, like this challenge, to take the time of thinking like what's really the thing that I'm struggling with. If I like, what's the thing that if I fix it, I will go twice as fast after. Well, like this is the thing that you need to do when you are talking to someone extremely smart for 30 minutes. And basically, this is one thing that we replicate to pretty much all the meetings that we have with incredible people. And it works every time.
About the US, why did you make the decision to stay there? When you have a US recognition like that, you're in the best ecosystem. So why you didn't stay there?
It's kind of aligned with what we talked about with Erika. I think the US is amazing for different reasons. Like the experts are there. We actually just came back from a trip in San Francisco of 2 weeks, and you have problems in growth, in products, in sales, but apply to our kind of business. Nobody is really expert in France, to be fairly honest. Or the few experts are maybe Usama, maybe Thibaut from eFounders. You have a few people, maybe Jean, that are really smart, but you don't have many experts. When you're there, you basically have everybody. Like it's just like the concentration is just outstanding. So I think the right way to do it is at some stage where you are not totally focused on your product, have key people going there. And we'll see how it goes, but I think we'll have some people there at some point. It's just not the right time, basically.
A lot of times we hear launch early, and it sounds like you launched early, but then kind of stepped back from that a little. Like, is there anything you would have done differently about your launch and figuring out when was the right time to launch?
So we didn't, like, you're talking about the beta phase that we had, right?
Yeah, the beta.
Yeah, we didn't feel like we were launching. Like we put, because we had to do a date, like a roadmap, like a retrospective. We put a date, but basically at some point we were at this moment where only Spendesk was using Sleight in like April of last year, and they didn't lose content. So they started not to lose content. So it was a great sign. I'm kidding, they didn't lose content. But I mean, like we reached this point where the product was stable enough, and we felt like real use cases were coming up, and we just went to all the people that we knew in our ecosystem and just pushed them to use the tool. And see how they used it, like what was the thing they were struggling with, and fix them, and then come back, and then and so on. And because like we had the amazing chance of being like a small tree of 4 to 5 people at this time, and well, like the core team at the really beginning was Pierre and I and our first developer Arnaud, and we are 3 developers, all of 3 super product oriented. Pierre already worked as a lead developer on a productivity tool called Zendu for like 5 years. He was like super aware of our problematics. Arnaud worked at Sunkick, so really, consumer-facing tool. And so we all had like a super product-oriented mindset. And so we were like really fast at the beginning. I mean, we still are, but like at the beginning, when you just have to adapt super quickly, this team plus eFounders was like a brilliant cocktail. So like it was not really like, I don't feel like we launched at this moment. We just had a super long learning phase. Yeah, absolutely. It just exactly like when we're there, we just came to new users. They had problems, we fixed them, and so on. And at some point, like the problems were like, yeah, those are problems, but it's like new features. So we knew we were ready to launch.
What convinced the VCs to invest in your company? Was it the growth, the scalability, the team, what did they see in your company?
So like this is like one of the, especially in seed stage, it's like always a weird mix of things. To be fairly honest, like we had people committed before having YC, and we basically say to them no. These people had like no, like we hadn't the YC label. So these people were convinced because of the execution. At this time, we had a year of existence, and we have an already like super sticky product with a great retention. People loving it. We had an outstanding NPS and so on. So basically, they just called companies that were using Sleight, that were in their portfolio most of the time, and they were convinced by that. Index invested after we had YC. So we were not in YC yet, but we met with them at this time. So I deeply think that the YC label was amazing for us on this. And of course they invested as well for all the rest. And the last thing is really related to Index itself. Their thesis is really to invest in future category leaders. We'll see if we go there, but at least we can, we have the right mission and goal and path today to go there if we are lucky enough to follow this path.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gabriel. To build on the previous question, you said you are product oriented, and it's nice to hear that you want to take some time to do that. But what was your argument for YC or for Index to say that you were going a bit slower than other companies could copy your product or use the time you're not? It's
a good question. Like the question that Eric asked me was basically why don't we explode the team with hires, right? And you're like we are not slow, like not at all, and we don't intend to be slow. Like we'll be super fast, and this is why YC and Index invested. Like basically we have a mission to be a standard, and we have already like super good usage, and we can build growth in the future. So these are the reasons why they invested. On the hiring, it's really about like sizing, and a product team is really hard. And I think sales is more repeatable when you have a model that works. I'm not a sales expert at all, but I think you can, really grow a team super fast. Like you can think about Tiller System or Doctolib or companies like that. I mean, their headcount is just outstanding, and it's like mainly because sales. In products, I think a team that will grow too fast will just die.
Hi. I found very interesting what you were saying about how nowadays it is possible or even at the advantage of companies to build a remote team. And then comes the challenge, how do you build a culture when your team is split across the globe?
Yeah, it's a super good question. Like the the thing that you are still missing in remote is this, human connection that you have physically. Like you have always this latency of Zoom or Skype or whatever, and you don't have like the small, I don't know, like the small details of your face or whatever, like the thing that, like cameras don't cap, but your eye does. So it's indeed like hard on that. And I think like the answer is really like buffers one. Like you have to do like not semi-remote, but to cut your remote sprints by moments where the team gathers around. Like typically tomorrow we actually go to an offsite in Tours, super sexy location, and with like all the team, like we'll be 11, and it's like one unique moment to like really enjoy being together to talk about like the deep subject. To review like what we did at the last quarter and so on, and like this is harder, I think, in remote. And so the way we do it, and I honestly, like we are really too young to say that it's the right way to do it, is that all the remote people that are in France come in Paris like once every 2 weeks for 2 days, and everybody like abroad comes in Paris for 1 week every 2 months. And like we try to maintain this close relationship, because the thing that has not been told is that we were 3 at the beginning of Sleight, like we really were super fastly 3, and one of them was in remote, and we put this system in place, and like it worked like in an outstanding way. Like we are really, really, really close. I don't know if it scales, but like this is at least the try that we have. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you mentioned in the presentation that you started the first line of code in 2016. Before starting that, have you validated your MVP? If yes, how? If no, why?
No, that's a good question. Like I started the first line of code, which was the MVP. And the way we did it was, maybe I'm a bit too technical, but basically we went really, really fast. The 2 challenges that we had were real time and collaboration. Collaboration in editing is like super hard. So this was like the thing that we knew we had to do for the long run, so we focused on that. And for the real time, we used a service called Firebase that you might know that helped us go super, super fast. And the hard thing, but that we did amazingly well looking back, was basically to say, okay, now is the moment to kill Firebase and to build our own service.
Hi, how do you build your team with eFounders at the start? You think the project, but how you motivate a developer to join you?
Yeah, it's a good question. What's the motivation for developers to join a company like Sleight? I think one of the most obvious reason was that very early on we were 3 developers, and only 3 developers. And I think you have some companies at the family that are like similarly built. I think this is one of the most attractive things for a developer, right? Like to join a team of engineers. It's like easy to like I don't know, like help other build. Like it's easy to work with them. The other thing is that we always pushed forward, like we always built on top technologies, which is obvious, but I mean, like we are based in React. We have our mobile app that is developed in React Native. The way we handle our socket, like the real time, is basically we use GraphQL with subscription, which is something that we are probably the only company in prod doing that. And we are preparing an open API for other third-party apps and developers to build on top of Sleight. This one will be powered by GraphQL as well. Like this is the kind of thing, like you always, because we are really like the core team were developers. We feel okay not to over-engineer, but at the same time always think of what can we do better on the technical side.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we can let Christophe have a glass of water. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Stick around.
Que la famille.